All right, well, I hope things went well last week. We're going to get started now on our first big topic in the course, and that's simple interest. In this first video, we'll just introduce us to the basic formulas and methods that we're going to use to work on things. All right, let's start with some terminology to kind of get us going and get us on the right track. We've got capital P for the amount of principal, capital I for the simple interest amount as well. So both of those things are dollar amounts. Small r for the interest rate and small t for the time. So those are not too bad. They all kind of make sense. Over on the right here, I've got a little picture to kind of get us oriented. We often say that the amount of money that we borrow is called the principal, and then the cost of borrowing that is called the interest on top. Another way to look at it, though, if you're the lender instead of the borrower, is the principal is the amount that you've loaned out or invested, and the interest is actually what you're going to earn. It's your profit on the deal. So interest is neither necessarily good or bad. Sometimes depends on which side of the equation you're on. Now, typically, we're going to express the interest rate, R, and the time in years. Okay, some questions will work in months or something, but we want them to match is the key thing, and we typically do annual for those two things. So if I give you an annual rate of 6% per annum, that's what PA means, per year, per annum, then I want time to be in years as well. So if someone said for 3 months, I would have to convert that to 3/12 of a year. That's all. Then everything would be in years or be annual. That's what I mean by that. Now notice a couple things. Dollar amounts tend to be capital letters in this course, and percentages and other things tend to be lowercase. That's kind of nice. You'll notice that as you go through the book, it'll help you keep things straight. So it's kind of a nice standard for us to follow. Let's start with a basic formula for simple interest. I is equal to PRT. You might have even been able to do that one on your own without thinking about it too much, but really it says the amount of interest is going to be the principal times the rate multiplied by the time. And that'll tell you how much interest is owing or earned. Here's an example to get us started. Let's suppose we borrow $500 for 1 year at a rate of 6%. How much interest are we going to pay? Well, I can go through. I borrowed 500 for 1 year at a rate of 6%. It doesn't say per annum, but if it doesn't say anything, we'll assume it's annual. And then the question is, how much interest are we going to pay? All right, so that's our question at the end. So let's go and have a look at that. I'm going to start by writing down what's in the question. May seem like a little bit of overkill at the moment, but quickly the questions will get longer, and the technique of writing things down to get organized is a really good one. So we borrowed 500, that must be the principal, for 1 year at a rate of 6%, but I'm going to write that as 0.06. Did you know that percentage, if you move the decimal over 2, it becomes a decimal. So 6% is the same as 0.06. And that's the form we want when we're doing our math. And then we've got a question. What are we trying to solve for? We're trying to solve for the amount of interest, aren't we? That's what we're looking for in the end. All right, well, out of all the formulas we've learned so far, do we have one that tells us the interest if we know P, R, and T? And we do. All right, that's just the one we just learned, I equals PRT. That's sort of the process, though, that you'll go through mentally as we keep going in the course. We'll have lots of formulas eventually, but you'll have kind of your things written down saying, oh, here's the things I know, here's what I don't know. Is there a formula that'll help me get there? Okay, so that's what we've got. Let's substitute the numbers in. 500 for P times 0.06, see that's where I had to convert it to the decimal form to make it work, times 1 for the time, And you might have already done this in your head, but it works out to $30. That's our answer. That matches up to what we're looking for. By the way, what would happen if I made a small change to this question and I said instead of 1 year, let's do 2 years. So t becomes not 1, but 2. Will I get exactly double the interest if I go twice as long? Like, will it just be 60? Or will my interest earn interest? Will I end up with more as I go over time? Well, let's find out. I'm going to put in P, R, and update T to be 2. And you can see if you do that multiplication, you actually do just end up with $60. So we end up with double the amount if we double the time. That's because with simple interest, your interest doesn't earn interest. It's just a straight, what we call a linear relationship. If you double the time, you'll double the interest. It's that easy. Now later in the course, when we get to compound interest, that'll all change. But for now, we can just keep it simple. We can also flip the formula around a little bit. So we started with I equals PRT. Well, what if I just divide both sides by RT? You can see that disappears over here, doesn't it? And we've got P equals I over RT. That's the first one that I put here. Similarly, R equals I over PT, and T equals I over PR. So now I've got 3 new formulas I can use to solve other types of questions. Questions like, how much should you invest? Or in the second case, what rate? Or in the third case, how long? Those types of questions. And let's have a look at some of those now. So let's try one out and put this to use. How much would we have to deposit into a savings account paying 4% simple interest per annum per year if you wanted to earn $20 over a time period of 6 months? So we do have some information that's been given to us. We have a rate of 4%. We want to earn $20, and we have a time period of 6 months. Now, since the rate is annual, I'm going to convert 6 months to years. I do that by dividing by 12. So 6 months is 6/12 of a year. I can go back to the question up top too, and that's how much would we have to deposit? That's the principal. That's our unknown. That's what we're trying to find out. Now I can go and pull out the version of the formula we just learned a minute ago. P is I over RT. Let's plug that in. 20 divided by 0.04 times 6 over 12. And if I work all that out correctly, I get $1,000. Exactly. All right, so we put $1,000 in. We'll earn our $20 in 6 months at that particular rate. Let's look at one where we have to determine the rate now instead. If you borrow $1,000 for 4 months and the lender charges you $30 in interest, what rate does that work out to be? So we've borrowed $1,000 for a time period of 4 months. I'm going to convert that to years right away because I want the rate to come out as an annual rate, don't I? We can see that right here. What rate per annum are they charging, right? So that's what they're asking us. Here, let's just highlight that. So that's fine. We were charged $30 interest. And so what is R going to be? That's our question. Well, let's see if we can work it out. We have a version of the formula for R, and that's I over PT. That's one that we actually use quite a bit as we go forward for the next few weeks. Let's plug our numbers in there. $30 on 1,000 over 4 months. What rate would that be? Well, it works out to 0.0900. Notice I went at least a couple extra decimals You want to keep at least 4 because later when you convert it to a percent, everything's going to move over 2. So you won't have very much accuracy if you don't do that. And how do I convert it over to a percentage? Well, you might see this kind of notation sometimes. That just means move the decimal over 2 and add the percent sign. And if we do, we get 9.00% as our answer. So this bank is charging us, or this lender is charging us, 9% annual interest rate on this loan. Finally, one more. We can look at the final version we had of the formula. How long? That's a T type of question or a time question. How long will it take a $5,000 investment to earn $100 interest at a rate of 9%? Well, let's again start by writing everything down. We have an investment of $5,000 and we want it to earn $100 in interest, and we have a rate of 9%. So I just kind of went through each time and wrote everything down, and I'm trying to find how long that will take. Now, because the rate is annual, the time will automatically come out in years, won't it? Because that's the units I'm working in. The interesting thing about this too is now that I've written all this down, I could actually just get rid of this whole English part and I've got everything I need. So that's one of the big benefits of getting organized and writing down all your variables and what you're looking for. You don't have to go back and keep rereading the English part because that's where people often get confused. So write it down so it's simpler to understand. And we have a formula that we just worked out. T is equal to I over PR. Let's plug that in there. 100 divided by 5,000 times 0.09, all down in the denominator. That works out to 0.2222 repeating. It must be years, isn't it? So it works out to 0.2 of a year. Well, it didn't ask what units to put the answer in. They come out in years because the rate was annual. But if I was talking to a real live person in real life, and I said, oh, it'll take 0.2222 years, they would probably just look at me like, what are you talking about? They would expect me to make it into something that's easy to understand. So let's see if we can convert that to months. If I multiply my years by 12, I'll get months, won't I? So 0.22222, etc. times 12, because there's 12 months in a year, ends up giving me 2.67 months. That's sounding a little bit better and easier to understand. Maybe I would leave it there. Maybe I'd be tempted to go a step further though and say, oh, let's go and convert that to, that's 2 months. Well, 0.67 of a month, that's about 20 days, isn't it? Roughly. So I could go even a step further perhaps if that was more interesting and convert that way. Now on an exam, of course, I'll tell you how far to go and what to do and where you can stop. But in real life, you just want to think, what's going to make sense to the people that I'm working with and trying to help out. All right, so I've given you some good material. It's your turn now to try one out, and here it is. Joseph purchases an investment for $90,000. He sold it 1 month later for $91,000. What annual rate of return did he realize on his investment? So what I'd like you to do is just press pause on the video and pull out a sheet of paper and try this one out. See if you can come up with the answer. And once you've got something, go ahead and hit play and we'll see if it worked out for you. All right. Okay, welcome back. Let's have a look at this one. We had principal of 90,000. We had time of 1/12 of a year, didn't we? Remember, our default will be to work in years unless it says otherwise. The amount of interest that he earned, well, that was 91,000 minus the 90 he put in. So he earned 1,000, didn't he? So that's big I. And we want to find R. and as an annual rate. And so I've made t annual already as well, so it's good to go. Let's go ahead and dig out our formula for r, I over pt. By the way, if you had any of those first few numbers wrong by mistake, hit pause, go ahead and recalculate, then come back and we'll keep going. But let's keep going now, and we got 1,000 divided by 90,000 times 1 over 12. That's all in the denominator. If you've got all this, but your answer didn't work, it's maybe because you're not quite using your calculator correctly. So you could try putting brackets around it, or just remember to do the bottom, correctly. Make sure you're set up as well in AOS mode, like I told you last week. So now we're all set to go. Work that out. 0.13333, again repeating, or 13.33%. So Joseph made a pretty good return, just over 13%. I hope that worked out for you. If not, try it again now that you've seen me do it, so that you're all set to go and work on some of the practice material. But I'm going to just round this out, or this portion of the week out, by giving you a few success strategies. You'll notice there are things that I did as I went through the examples in the practice one. First, I took my time to read the questions. There's so many times where you'll get a question that's similar to one you've just done. And if you don't slow down and read the details, you could easily get started on the wrong track. So take your time, read through everything, then write down everything that's given, as well as the thing we're trying to find. You saw I did that each time. P equals, T equals, etc. All those things. That way you can get rid of the English part, and it's usually the combination of word problems and math that cause people trouble. Once they get to the math side, they don't mind so much, right? Our brains can handle that a little bit easier. So take the time to get yourself there and get sorted out. Use all your decimals during your calculations, and only round when you get to your final answer. That's my last tip for you this week, but it's an important one. You don't want to round along the way, because that'll introduce rounding error. So don't round during your calculations. Round at the end. Once you get the final answer, round at the end only. And there I want you to go, unless I ask otherwise, to 2 decimals. Why 2 decimals? Well, for percentage rates and time, that's usually good enough and precise enough, and that's what you'll often see posted, by the way, if you go by your bank and there's an ad on the wall, or you read the newspaper, if you read the newspaper still, and you see an ad, it'll have to 2 decimals. The other thing is it just makes sense when we're dealing with money, because if I tell you a dollar amount, it's always dollars and cents, isn't it? Cents go to 2 decimals automatically. So rounding to 2 decimals makes sense because of cents. There you go. So that'll help get you started. Practice some from the very first part of the chapter, and then when you're ready, I'll have another video up for you that you can work through to take us to the next level. All right.